Hello and welcome back to another episode of our Europreneur podcast, also on YouTube and on our website. And today, I think we have one of the people I would definitely describe as a good storyteller and a good friend. And we met a few times all around the world. I think in the last 4 or 5 times. I'd like to start with something a bit different. Would you do me the kind favor of giving us a 60-second elevator pitch or so about your name, who you are, what you do, and everything, and we'll start from there. Is that okay?
Sure. I'm Irish. You'll have to cut me off after 60 seconds. So, hi, I'm Stephen. I'm from EO Ireland. I'm one of the founding members of EO Ireland. So I've been a member for 7 years now, I think. I grew up in a family business, so I'm a second generation entrepreneur. We had two family businesses. We sold one of them just before COVID hit. So the timing, we were very lucky with the timing. And what we're focusing on now is career guidance, personality profiling, psychometrics, and helping people to progress their careers.
What was the other one?
The other one was an English language school. We had an ESL school here in Dublin. Yeah.
An English school in Dublin?
An English language school in Dublin, yes. We speak it better than anybody else in the world.
So people.
Well, I was the marketing person for the school, so obviously I was going to say that.
And you have good English. Wait, so people would come to Dublin to learn, or was it?
Yeah, no, people would come to learn. I mean, Ireland is we speak English natively here in Ireland, so it's the third or fourth biggest destination in the world for people to come to learn English for many years, behind the UK and the USA or Canada.
That's amazing. And who started that business in your family?
So that was my folks. My parents started that in 1989. I worked from the age of, 10, 11 years of age, making brochures, making coffees, cleaning, doing bits and pieces, running around the office. Then I started working in the marketing department, working in the admin office, doing airport transfers, basically anything and everything that kids were able to do. And then I started running some of the summer camps. During the summers, I would spend 8 weeks running camps for Spanish, Italian, French, Russian, whatever teenagers. And that's how I cut my teeth. That's how I kind of got the training for management and for running these types of programs. And then more and more when I finished college, I went away for a while. I came back and got fully involved in the family business and was traveling all over the world, promoting Ireland as the #1 destination to learn English as a foreign language.
But by the way, I think it's one of the best destinations I've ever been to on the planet, in my opinion. So
I won't disagree with you.
No, you can't. It's a very good pleasure to visit you all in your chapter twice, but one of them was one of the best experience I remember was the mentorship summit of EO. I think it was 2018 maybe. So, and you guys invited us to watch on St. Patrick's. It was just now.
Around now, yeah. So
St. Patrick's
I remember. Yeah, well, St. Patrick's Day is next Wednesday. So whenever you're watching this, St. Patrick's Day either was amazing or will be amazing, because it always is. Even though this year it's the second year now. So because we're in COVID, we had to we closed the pubs about a year ago in Ireland, and they have not opened since. And they're not going to be open for another couple of months at least. So we've had 2 St. Patrick's Day now without parades or without celebrations or without partying or anything else. So I really do think next year's St. Patrick's Day is just going to be off the charts. It's going to be amazing. So if you want, you should probably start booking your flights and hotels now, because it's going to book up fast.
I'm going to crash at your place. I don't know what you're talking about, a hotel.
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of EOers you might be sharing the floor space with some other EOers who have the same idea.
That's how all the good stories start. And I remember when we were there was the third time, I think, Ireland beat England in the rugby in like 105 years, right? Was the third time they won in 105 years?
I think it might have. No, we've won the Grand Slam a couple of times in rugby. So there's
they beat all the teams or something.
Yeah, that's the Grand Slam. So that's when the Grand Slam is really when we beat what is now the Six Nations. Used to be just the England, Ireland, Wales, England, Ireland, Wales, and Scotland. So to beat everybody in that, so we don't really count the other countries at the moment.
You don't count all the victories anymore. Wait, so you're
no, it's just the British Isles competitions that we really care about.
Oh, okay. I'm learning. Wait,
and Ireland is playing Scotland right now, so I'm missing that match right now to talk to you.
And I love you to pieces for that. And you're what we might call a child CMO. You started doing marketing at like when you were a kid. What did you study in college? What did you like?
Well, I did marketing. I did marketing and French as my first course in university, and I really, really liked the marketing. I really enjoyed it. But the French, the jump from I did honors French, so I had a pretty high level of French. But the jump to the pure academic study of French was too much for me. I really didn't enjoy it. I didn't get on well in that course. So I dropped out, went and did a computer course instead, and then went back to college the year later. Did computer science, computer programming. So a little bit of programming, a little bit of end user, a little bit of database development, that kind of stuff. And then I had an amazing year. My first year, failed 2 subjects, had to repeat. So while I was repeating just those 2 subjects, rather than getting bored, I did a night course in marketing. I was also running events, so organizing parties, selling tickets for events and things like that when I was in college. So I did computers and marketing basically in college, which is more or less what I do now.
Interesting. You know, I interviewed Anastasis from EO Athens, EO Greece, and he told me an amazing story about how he took over the business, the family business, and I think it was a 4th generation, and all the transformation they had done in terms of tech and transportation, so many other things. Did you see yourself taking over the family business at a young age, or both businesses?
Yeah, I always knew I started my first kind of entrepreneurial venture when I was like 9 years old. I used to draw and sell comics in my school. So I knew I was never going to be able to work for anybody else because I would be impossible to manage. So it was always an attraction for me to run my own business. And then there were 2 family businesses. So it made sense for me to be what I call the next gentrepreneur. So being entrepreneurial, but having a bit of a head start. So
how did you find the struggle between the transfer was easy because you grew in the business? A lot of people discuss the fact that the 2nd generation needs to kind of like come into the business, the struggles of that. How do you perceive that?
Well, I'm actually writing a keynote at the moment where I would argue that no family member should join the business ever, that the business should join the family member. Because I think the phrase that I use for this is, what got you here is not going to get them there. So the business needs to adapt and change, and it's not to force the kids in to adapt to the way that you want to do things. You have to adapt your business to the future, and they are the future. The next generation, if you want them in, it's adapting to them, not them adapting to your business. A couple of outliers, obviously, but on the whole, my argument is that's why most family businesses don't make it through the generations, because they don't adapt. They have to stay rigid.
Yeah,
but in my case, I actually remember, well, it must have been about 10 years ago, maybe 9 years ago now, coming home and being absolutely exhausted we'd been arguing for a couple of weeks on the direction we needed to go in the language school, what courses we needed, what things we needed to focus on, and all the rest of it. And I slumped at the kitchen table and I said, I got to leave the family business. Otherwise, my kids are never going to see their grandparents because we're going to fucking hate each other and we won't be able to be in the same room together. Oh. And it was kind of around that time. When I said that, I knew this was, this is not what I wanted. Every fiber in my being said, no, this is wrong. We have to change course. We have to do something here. And that's when I started researching a lot more into succession planning and getting more involved in the other business, which is about personality and about aptitudes and about abilities and all this kind of stuff. So really shaping what I wanted to be doing. Then soon after I actually joined EO, a couple of years later, that was when I came across EO, and I kind of figured this was exactly what I needed and wanted. Different perspectives, people who are have been there, done that in a lot of scenarios, but also don't really know my industry. And I was able to use an awful lot of that to grow and to develop personally, because I grown up in a family business, was limited in the number of external interactions I had in a business world.
Yeah. Quick question. You said you're one of the founding members of the chapter in Dublin. How did you stumble upon EO? And then we can elaborate a little bit, but how did you find, or did it find you maybe?
So no, I was actually the only member, as far as I know, in the only founding member that didn't know had no other connections to the other members in EO. I didn't know any of the other members, had no business dealings with them. I came in through a very dear friend of mine in Vancouver, who was in the same business as me in the language travel industry. And we were talking at a conference, and she was kind of saying, "Hey, you might be a fit for this. This might be something that'd be interesting for you." Then I read up a little bit about it, found that there was an Irish chapter about to launch, or it was coming soon on the website at the time. So I got in touch, found out that actually the European staff member who was in charge of chapter launches was an old school friend of mine, somebody who I hadn't seen in years and years. Met for a coffee, met for lunch, had a bit of a chat, really got to know, got a kind of an inside track as what EO is all about. And said, yeah, this is for me. But the key thing, I was still a little bit kind of feels a bit like a cult. But then I remember there was the chapter from Boston had come over to Ireland. We were at a big event, and I brought my wife with me. And my wife got talking. We were all chatting with different people. And my wife got talking with some of the EOers and some of their partners and things like that. And halfway through the night, after she'd talked to a few people, she just turned around to me and said, "These are your people. You got to join this, because they talk about the same off the wall stuff that you talk about. They look at the world the same way that you do. And they're all about supporting and helping the same thing." So for me, that was when I kind of said, yeah, this is for me. And I think, of the 7 years I've been a member of EO Ireland, I've been the first or second person to renew membership every year. It's just an automatic. As soon as it comes in, it's not even thought about for a minute. It's done. I get so much out of EO.
There was just a discussion today in one of our closed Facebook groups when a member said that he left and he's thinking about rejoining, and then he asked about how do you guys look at the dues? Because at the end of the day, you and I are member leaders, which means we not only pay, but we volunteer our time to help support this peer-to-peer organization. And the amount of answers, they were like, "Oh, it's not relevant how much the dues are," or "I don't care," or "I love paying my dues," or just seeing those messages reminded me of why we're part of this amazing organization, and the fact that I last week sent one message and amazing people like yourself replied and said, "Yeah, sure, I'll jump on a call with you and do this," which again is a big part of us wanting to spread the word about entrepreneurship and helping young entrepreneurs learn more and do more. And you've been a big advocate for EO within the Dublin chapter. How's that growing? How would you describe? Because entrepreneurship is big. There's a lot of companies and thriving businesses in Dublin.
Yeah, entrepreneurship is big. So we lost a few members, people who had kind of come in, done a couple of things, but hadn't done anything past the chapter level, hadn't done anything really past the forum level. And to me, you get a huge amount of value from forum, you get an immense amount of value from the other connections you have in Ireland. But actually, once you start going past your chapter, going to international events, going to regional events, even connecting with other like-minded people through bridges, forums, things like that, and actually connecting and sharing information with other people who are in the same industry as you in different markets. This is where you get even more value. And so I have spent an awful lot of my time internationally within EO and get an immense amount from it. So we did lose, we had a little bit of a downturn a couple of years ago in Dublin, and we're starting to come back up again. So we have a lot of people who are interested, looking for what we're offering. One or two are not sure about doing forum, for example, virtually. So they've come to some of the virtual events and they said, yeah, look, in June, once we start again and once we start coming out of lockdown, then I'm going to join, because I really do. They see the value in it. They get the idea of it. But I think they might be a little bit hesitant of just starting a new forum virtually as opposed to in person, because.
Yeah, so I know we all love forum in person, and meeting, and it's a big thing for us. A forum, when we meet once a month, no matter where we are on the planet, we come back and we have the sessions, which is amazing, and the structure is great. But I believe at the end of the day, if we all look at it, we survived the last 12 or 13 months of, sadly, doing those sessions, those forum sessions online. And if we stuck it out, we got value. Some forums I know went to 2 hours instead of four. Some changed the model a little bit, adapted. And I think it's also a bit of the entrepreneurial spirit. Like, we'll still do it, but in accordance with the time. So I know my forum went to twice a month, 2 hours.
I know there's a lot of forums, a couple of forums in Ireland that went to twice a month. We actually restructured at the end of last year some of the forums. So I was in a new forum from June last year. So through lockdown, so we met, I think, twice in person when restrictions eased a little bit, but we've had all online virtual forums with a new forum, and we're all new members into this new forum that got put together. And I have to say, it has worked really, really well, because regardless of whether you're in person, obviously in person, the connections are far deeper. But because we all know, look, this is where we are, we want to get the most out of this. Let's just lay it all on the table. And we have connected immensely, even just in 2D over the last couple of months. And I think it has worked very well. I can see how, for people who are new to this whole format and haven't experienced forum before, I can see how they might be a little bit worried that they might not connect. But I've been in a new forum now for the last year, and we've had almost every meeting has been virtual, and I really feel like I'm getting a lot out of it too.
Yeah, I think you say about forum that it used to be and still is a very big or major part of what is EO as a member. The member value is big there. Over the past, I believe, 4 or 5 years, we started to feel the global, where every chapter is pushing people to leave as soon as possible, to leave their chapter, meet people on in other cities, other chapters, other continents, and so on. And once they get hooked, it's addictive. Like, once you go to one event, you meet some people. I think there were years I've probably had drinks and had breakfast with you more times in different places on the planet than I've had with my close friends sometimes. I think we met 3 or 4 times a year sometimes.
Okay, well, you got to spend some more time with your close friends. You're spending more time with me, but that's...
I own bars. We don't have a lot of free time. We have to go out.
Okay, well, that's true. And you own a lot of bars, so you don't have a lot of breakfast anyway, because you're partying all night and looking after drunken guests that are in your bars.
Yeah, so I think, but it's a big thing. People get addicted to the fact that they know people on other sides of the planet. And I think throughout COVID, it was amazing to hear people from the Chinese chapters talking about the situation before it hit. Hearing the Italians as it was happening, which was heartbreaking and mind-blowing at the same time for me. And just the fact that we now can talk with people in New York and understand what's the situation there, whereas most of the people...
You've heard, I'm sure, undoubtedly, dozens and dozens of stories like this, but we had an EO Shanghai member who, her husband is British with Irish heritage or something like that, and they kind of got stuck here in Ireland because they weren't able to go back. They'd been over here just before COVID broke. The kids were going to college, to school in the UK. They come over here for a visit, and they basically got stuck here. So we just adopted them into our chapter. They came to all of our virtual chapter events. They didn't make it to the in-person because as soon as the restrictions eased up, they were able to go to the UK and see the kids and all the rest of it. But it was a really interesting experience to have somebody international from somewhere else as a really active part of our forum through all this. The other thing, the story that I tell quite a bit is I lived in Madrid for a year. My wife is Spanish, and one of my bucket list things was to live in Spain for a year. I wanted to make sure that my kids, as they grew up, didn't just see Spain as the holiday destination. They had to do homework, they had to do chores and all the rest of it. And I had a really fantastic relationship with the local chapter when I was there. Now, I came home every month to do forum and to do one-to-one meetings and group meetings in my businesses in Ireland. But I went to a lot of the chapter events in Madrid and got an immense amount out of that and met loads of the members and got a lot of experience shares and a lot of ideas and a lot of ways of doing different things. And having that time in Spain was just life-changing for me as well. that's actually when I decided that I knew I didn't want to be in the English language business anymore, and I wanted to focus on the other business.
A lot of people talk about focus, owning one business, scaling that business, exiting that business, and then going to the next step. How do you run two businesses in one with aligned?
The same way as you do anything well, you have to have good people around you. And being able to find the right people, being able to know and identify the right people and what the right person means to you is key. So having really, really good, solid COOs, operational people in every facet of it. It's the same one in EO when I was working within the different. Sorry, my headphone is just about to go for some reason.
I'll pause it. Going.
Can you hear me? Am I on the?
No.
Isn't my what was I saying? So it's the same within EO. So when I was involved in the GSEA and involved at the chapter level and the regional level, having really good operational people in the staff who support the members and support everything and actually run everything and make sure that everything runs smoothly are absolutely phenomenal. And one of the things that EO has really taught me is being able to identify core values and being able to discuss those values and actually find people who are aligned with not only where you're going, but how you want to get there. And then you get much more smooth running businesses and organizations.
EO is a peer-to-peer organization where we not just, as I said, pay the dues and also take part. Some people less active, more active. And we encourage more people to take a leadership role once every 3 years. And I know when I started, I didn't exactly get it. And now I've been in a leadership role for the last 5 years, and I can't get enough in terms of learning and added value and so on. And then you discuss about the staff, the people who work within EO, which is amazing because for every entrepreneur we have that pushes ideas and stuff, we have people who actually make that happen. And I think what I love about it is they're not our employees, they're our colleagues, and we're attached together, and their success is our success and vice versa. And I love that. I think it's a very unique way because in our businesses, we operate a bit differently. Has that also impacted the way you hire employees?
Well, we're very lucky that we have in our two businesses, we've always had very low churn rates. So we have very long-term staff who stay with us and kind of become part of our family as such. So we haven't actually had a huge influx of hiring people, but it has been really useful for being much clearer about what we're trying to achieve and being able to codify and being able to give examples and point to this is how we want to do things, which means that then I don't have to be making all of the decisions. People know where we're going and how we want to get there, so they can actually make that decision themselves based against our core values and based against the way that we have done things and we've talked about where we want to go in the future. So it gives a lot more empowering, empowers people a lot more to be able to make the decisions on behalf of the company that are in the best interest of the company and for us to grow together.
How important is it, in your opinion, to be aligned and have a clear vision of where we're going? A lot of companies talk about strategy, but at the end of the day, they're all about tactics.
So for me, I do a lot of personality stuff. We're Hogan distributors. I do a lot of stuff with Hogan, DISC, colors, Enneagram, strengths finders, all these kind of different personality roles. And my default is always as far into the future as I can get to. So figuring out the ultimate goal and the ultimate future vision for where we want to go to. That's why I need people who are much more tactical around me to be able to do stuff in the now, so as I can really figure out where it is that we're going. I think it's really important to do 1 year and 5 year plans, but I also think it's really important to know where you want to be in 30 years time. I mean, that might move and dramatically change. Obviously, COVID has knocked everything on its ass and everybody is kind of gone and pivoting and going in different directions. But having an idea of where you want to go personally and for the organization allows you to make much more long-term decisions rather than having to go, oh, by this quarter, we have to have accomplished this. Actually, no, we're going there. So long as we're going in that direction and we're not losing money, then we can keep going and making these decisions and making long-term thinking decisions as opposed to immediate payoff decisions.
You today,
and for me, for the next generation, I think it's also very important to have as long-term a vision as you can. Very famous Irish beer company, Guinness. You may have heard of them. They're a little known stout company.
They owe me a few days.
Founded here in Ireland. Sorry?
They owe me a few days that I've lost.
Well, I mean, that's something you can bring up with Arthur himself. But when Arthur founded Guinness, he was very much of the mindset, we need to think about this company in terms of generations yet to come. And I think that's really important. And there are a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of EOers, founders who've grown really big businesses who I think can actually have a multi-generational business. If you have a business and you have a family, you have the potential to be a multi-generational family. You just need to be able to see where the two can fit and where it makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense in exactly what you're doing now, you can start to move and steer the ship in a slower way. You don't have to have a handbrake turn to the right.
It sounds to me like a very Irish thing to have a legacy, to have a vision, a clear vision, a family business. You know, I come from a country that in Israel was 70. You know, we're too young to even have generations. So some businesses, but there are very few. So.
But I don't know if it's legacy. I think the idea, what I'm actually suggesting is that we don't think about legacy. We're not thinking about, because it's been done in the past, this is the way we have to do it in the future. What I'm saying is we have the opportunity and the ability to allow our kids to also be entrepreneurial, but they don't necessarily have to go through all of the struggles that we've gone through. I'm second generation. I've done a lot, but I haven't built this particular business from the ground up and been around in the early days. I've done other stuff. So what I want is to be able to give my kids the opportunity to be entrepreneurial, but to give them a bit of a head start.
Some entrepreneurs are really good at the initial start of the business, kicking it off, building everything, and then they get bored from the day to day. And some entrepreneurs are really good, or some managers or CEOs are really good at the second phase. Do you feel you would like to someday start another business from scratch and see how that goes? Or
yeah, and it's one of the reasons that I sold the language school. I knew that I wasn't the right person for the way that industry was going. There was a need to have multiple centers, to open a new school in London, in New York, in Sydney, and all these other places, and to actually start to scale the way that the business is run. And I know, and I knew at the time, that is not my wheelhouse. That is not what I'm good at. I'm much better at slightly smaller, having an impact, being able to be a bit more dynamic, and not having to replicate the same thing over and over again and having lots of processes in place. It's not my strength. So I said, I'm not the right person for the next phase of this. So the best idea is to find somebody who has similar set of values, similar view, but is better at the process side of things, and for my team to join them and have some security and stability going forward.
Interesting. You think young people listening to us now or watching this on YouTube, what is your experience share you would give them if they're thinking about joining the family business?
If they're thinking about joining the family business, first of all, there's a lot of very open and frank conversations that need to be had first. And there's questions that the next generation has to ask of the current generation. And so the next entrepreneurs have to interview the current generation to see, look, if you want me to take over the business, you have to sell the idea to me, because there's a big reason why a lot of these businesses don't make it to the next progressive generations is because they're resistant to change, and change is inevitable and change is necessary. And that's a big problem with what you said with legacy thinking.
And speaking of young people, you went to your leadership roles within EO and found yourself within the GSEA, the Global Student Entrepreneurs Awards, which
The
is an
best
amazing
program that EO
program.
runs.
The best.
The best program in EO.
Could you explain a little bit what is GSEA for people who don't know what it is?
So the GSEA is the Global Student Entrepreneur Awards. It is a program designed by EO to help university students who are crazy enough to be studying and to set up and own and operate their own business. So we have, we're in about 51 countries around the world. So we have national competitions run by local chapters or run by partners if we don't have a chapter in that particular country. And it's all about motivating, empowering, and networking with these young entrepreneurs. I'm loath to say future entrepreneurs because they are current entrepreneurs. They've set up a business, they're running a business. This might not be the business that is going to take them to superstardom. This is their first taste of it. So they might have 2 or 3 other businesses before they hit the one that really allows them to grow as an individual. But what we want to do is to support these entrepreneurs to learn and grow, to go and become entrepreneurs in the future and stay being entrepreneurs instead of getting, a real job. So we've been, sorry, I'll explain to you what a real job is later, Near. I know EOers generally don't know what a real job is.
No, but some of them have real, it's not a student entrepreneur with an idea and a presentation. Some of them have actual live, not very small, that they can qualify to EO. Right.
Yeah, we've had a few. We've had more than one GSEA student, GSEA competitor, become an EO member. I think we're probably up at about 10 or 12 worldwide at this stage. But we've had people who are still in college or just out of college who have joined EO because their business is up at that level, which is astonishing. I mean, I ran businesses when I was in college, and I set up different things, and I did events, and I did other programs. I wasn't at that level when I was in college. So it's incredible.
What is the best way, in your opinion, for someone who wants to start the GSEA competition in their chapter or in a local? This is the first time they've been hearing about EO, listening to us now. Is there a way they can apply somewhere? They can reach out to the chapter somehow?
Yeah, so GSEA.org is the website, which has all of the information and all of the local competitions for student entrepreneurs to apply to, all of the local chairs. So all of the information. If you are a chair or if you're somebody in a chapter that doesn't have a GSEA competition at the moment, all of the information to apply is there. It's a GLC track, so there's a lot of learning. There's a load of support. There's what we call the GSEA in a box. It's just a drop box of information, and it is plug and play documentation to help you with everything. And all of this is transferable to your business. So press releases, organizational charts, being able to run an event like this, it gives you an immense amount of satisfaction.
I know Sweden, that's still their chapter is in the making, but Sweden had a participant in the competition, I think in the finals or semifinals.
Yeah, in this year. So in the documentary that just launched, they Own the Room on Disney Plus, which is where this documentary follows 5 of the GSEA students for the competition that we had in Macau a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. The 5 that they follow, I'm not going to spoil it, but some of the other finalists, there are 7 finalists in the final out of the 51 that make it through to the semi-final rounds. And Sweden was indeed one of the final 7 that year.
So I think it's amazing to see that this is getting quite a lot of traction all the way to, and I'll repeat that, a Disney Plus documentary, which, so Macau was April 2019, I think it was filmed.
Yeah,
right?
That's the one.
Correct. And I even had the pleasure of judging in one of the rooms, I remember, which was a great honor. And I think it's amazing that we have that. And this is taking us to the next level, not just with an EO, but with our journey to bring entrepreneurship and help people and promote and support. And I think we have now the option or the possibility, right, as entrepreneurs on a global scale with 200 plus chapters to help young people take it to the next level. And we also have the accelerator, which is also
I was just going to say, it's not just the young people. So EO also has the accelerator program, which is for anybody, any age, who's running a business of 250K plus. And there's some fantastic learning days. So a lot of the people in the chapters where accelerator programs are run, a lot of members go to those learning days, and some places they pay to go to those learning days. They pay an extra fee to get access to those amazing speakers and these amazing one-day learning content events based on the 4 pillars of scaling up with Vern Harnish. So there's people, execution, cash, and strategy. And there's a whole deep dive into that day with really, really practical, tangible stuff to take away. And I know every EOer in Ireland who's gone to those, and I've gone to many of them, come away with a huge amount of ideas and different ways of thinking about something that we can apply straight away to our own businesses as well, which is, I mean, it's just another reason why the amount of learning that you have access to in EO is just mind-blowing.
I love the book Scaling Up by Vern Harnish that you just mentioned. And it's interesting. I think they discuss about the size of the business that is relevant, but I probably read it twice. I don't think it's just specific for, I don't know, 40 people, I think, staff or whatever. They discuss a number. And I think there's a lot of takeaways that you can do specific things. And also what I love is they say, don't implement everything at once.
Yeah.
And I think that's also something people sometimes, we listen to podcasts and books and we go back to the office and we say, okay, we're going to change everything. And I remember when I joined EO, I'd fly to events and my employees didn't get it. It felt like it was a cult. Where is he flying and what is he doing? And the word cult kept coming back with my friends and other people. And then after a while, we started to implement some of the things. And I remember, so I came back, I think it was Frankfurt or something, and people said, so how was the cult? What are we going to implement now? And they started to do it as well. And I think it's about picking 1 or 2 things in our businesses and then consistently improving small things, right? And not just breaking everything, tearing it down.
I remember one of the first international events that I went to in, I think it was Athens in Greece. I think it was the first GLC where everybody was together. And I saw Hazel Jackson presenting multipliers with Liz Wiseman's book, but I think Hazel Jackson does a lot of the MEA region. And one of the accidental diminishers was this people who come in and they always have ideas. And as she was talking, it was like, oh my God, that's me. Like I'm the exact same as you. There's a brilliant idea. Let's go do it. And everyone's going, oh God, what are we going to do now? So even at those kind of events, and then you start talking about it with other EOers who are in similar situations or who have had similar experiences, because sometimes when you're talking, let's say with your friends that don't know, that don't have the struggles of payroll or don't have the struggles with having to meet deadlines for an entire business, they very professional people, they run their organizations, they do their jobs very well, but they don't have the same level of baggage that we do, for example. Having that outlet to be able to discuss those things openly without having to give all of the background and all of the baggage and explain all of the thinking that went on before you get to that point, it's really life-changing.
I want to say a huge thank you. Every time I meet you, you inspire me to go back and do more with EO. And I always think I'm doing enough, but hey, after talking to you, I think we'll do another 10 podcasts now.
Well, look, it's one of the things. So I'm lucky enough to be serving as EO Ireland president this year, and I'm staying on next year as well. But I know there's some areas in EO that I know I would be useless in. Like I would be terrible on the standing finance committee, for example. It's not my wheelhouse. But GSEA and Accelerator, there's just something about helping the next generation of entrepreneurs that is just so appealing to me, that I think it's probably where I'll spend as long as I possibly can until they get bored of me and kick me out.
Interesting. For me, I've been doing the marketing in Europe, head of marketing in Europe for the past, I think, 4 years. And now I'm going to move to do something else within marketing. And the reason is I want to help people like you within EO spread the message to as many young entrepreneurs and to as many accelerator members. And, By the way, it is important to say that the accelerator does not take equity. The idea is to scale them for 250, go to 1 million, and then hopefully join us as members.
That is, and it's a very important point that I always bring up with potentials, because they're some accelerators, they give you a lot of training, they give you a lot of support, and they take a big chunk of that upside. We don't do any of that. It's all about helping each other to learn and grow.
I want to say a huge thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure. And hopefully I'm going to book just a flight, because I'm going to stay with you and the other people from EO, sleep on the floor. As long as we can have St. Patrick's in Dublin.
Cool.
My dear friend, thank you so much.
Nir, it's always a pleasure. Thank you very much for everything that you do in EO, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this series of videos and podcasts, and seeing some of the other EOers that I just miss. I miss connecting with everybody. I miss hugging people, meeting them at different events. So hopefully this will bring back a little bit of that warm feeling.